All right, everybody, it's official. Recording's rolling, and we are here for a meeting of the Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team, January 27th. And the agenda as published was chair opening comments, vice chair administrative items. We were supposed to have a presentation by Eric Cope of Intelligent Mapping LLC. He has not checked on board yet, so hopefully in the next 10 minutes of us blabbing, he'll join us. Small group updates, way forward discussion, kind of finalize the charter going forward here, and then wrap up is the agenda. With that, I turn it over to our fearless leader. Barb, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the end of January. And I think the focus for us going forward the next couple of months is to really see what we can do with making some progress, both on the prototype and some recommendations for the what we need for map data. And then I know Dean's team with the agreements. So I think we've got another couple of months here, 2-3 months of a window before everybody gets really busy in the summer that we can make some really good progress. So that's my pep talk right now is let's see how much we can get done before beginning of May when things really start to get really busy for us. So with that, let's get going.
Thank you. What I've got for you for administrative updates is as follows. Out and about, kind of the function of outreach in terms of talking to folks about what we're up to. Barb, I think you saw the note from Jeff concerning the folks in the United Kingdom wanting to have a chat with us. He had asked for that on February 7th at 4 p.m. their time, of course, which would be 10 o'clock Central. And I think key to that discussion would be the attendance by Dean. So I'll throw that on the table for consideration. Do you want to do that via private email discussion, or how do you want to handle that one?
Well, what day of the week? Let me just pull up the calendar and take care of that right now. Hold on. I don't know what day of the week February 7th is.
I think that's a Monday, Barb.
Yeah, so it's Monday night. I'm just fine with that. So it'd be 10 at night?
No. 10 o'clock Central AM for us.
Okay, yep. I'm fine. Yeah, that's just fine. Let's just,
yep.
If everybody's free, let's just make it happen.
Can I just ask that you give me about 12 hours to see if I can finalize some plans? I'm supposed to be out of the office that week. And that one day in particular is in limbo. So I got to make sure I'm at a spot where I've got internet and video access.
Somebody's going on vacation. Is that what you're saying?
Trying to. But I'll try to respond before the end of the day. I just want to make sure I don't create a problem for my social director in chief.
Okay.
Understood. You don't want to do that. That's for sure. Okay. With that, I think the next item up there on that is February 20th. I'm sorry, the 10th. I've been asked by a National Geologic Working Group that they're interested in rocks and stuff underground, but they're also interested in finding out what we're poking around doing here because they consider that to be below the surface level. So kind of an interesting thing. We'll see where that goes. February 24th, I'll be up at the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors. Barb and Travis are going to tag team down to the Global Excavation Safety Conference. I believe your actual presentation day is the 3rd. That's a Thursday, if I remember correct. And Barb, I
can see you online.
Barb, to be determined what you need to do here with the Minnesota County Engineering Group.
Yeah, that'll be arranged for February. I don't have the date yet.
Okay.
But that's in the works of getting arranged. And then I talked with Paul Teacher today. And Paul, if you could, what was the group you wanted me to talk to again? Was it the it's on March 21. What was the group called?
MPCA, Barb.
Oh, yeah, MPCA. Thank you. I couldn't remember all those initials. Thank you.
We talking Minnesota? Did I hear that right? Pollution
MP
control.
On the 21st.
And which
Just
group
a-
is that?
That's a Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I believe that's what it stands for.
Yep.
It's the annual operators conference. So
Okay. And that's February?
March 21.
March. Okay. All right. Thanks, Paul. Next up is other items, subsurface utility mapping strategy forum. I mentioned it last time. Jeff Zeiss, who is an esteemed member of this group across the border in Canada, is the chair. It's done entirely virtually. Pencil it in if you have a chance to zoom in on this, March 22nd through the 23rd. And there's the link for it. Once again, subsurface utility mapping strategy forum. Canada, according to Jeff, is trying to pull even with us on what we've been up to, and we're chasing the United Kingdom. So stuff to be learned everywhere.
I looked at that agenda for those 2 days, and I'd recommend people checking it out and attending as much as makes sense for them.
Okay. Is there anything else out there drifting around that just as admin items we want to pass along to the group? Going once, going twice, gone, off we go. And so now we find out, Eric, are you with us? Oh man, bad form. Wonder what happened there. Interesting. Well, I guess that means we move into the next item on the agenda.
Is there a way we can call them or email them or?
Well,
Yeah,
well, I'll go ahead then. I can email him, but he hasn't reached out to me. So I'll behind the scenes, I'll do this.
okay, so you're gonna connect and we'll move on with the group reports. Is that what we want to do?
I'll unmute. Yes.
Yep, okay. And with that, so last time we were together, I took the slide from last month with the objectives of what the groups should be working towards in the interim for this meeting. And of course, we have this thing in there known as the holidays and New Year and Martin King Luther Day and all the rest of that stuff out there. Martin Luther King Jr. correction. But the idea was that by the time we got back together, that each group would hold a meeting of your active small group players, determine what was missing on the tasking spreadsheet, which we're going to revisit again today, and then develop a plan for tackling your group items on the plan and be prepared to brief the above items at our next large group meeting. So, okay, let's find out how well we did. With that, they're the fearsome four up there at the top. Travis, the floor is yours.
Why do you always have to start with group one? I always feel bad if I have a bad report and have to say, hey, we have not met this last month. We took an extended holiday, but we have been pulled in to some other groups. So we did meet with Dean's group, of course, and go over some of the contracts and stuff they were writing up. And I've been working with Bob and his group on the data and getting some of our pilot program up and going, and the necessary info that he needs. So I apologize, I know, but I set the bar low for everybody else to look good. So
Those meetings count, by the way, Travis.
okay, good.
Yeah, see, you're not as much trouble as you thought you were.
Yeah, you guys are easy on me.
All right, so we know that Bob is plotting and scheming a meeting tomorrow morning for his Fusion View group, which will kind of break out here in a bit. But Bob, what do you have to report?
I could just say that that's it. We arrived at the idea that we're going to meet on the last Fridays of each month. So that's out as a standing meeting. I also started recording them. So our last one was in December, and that one is posted. And then I've got an agenda put together for tomorrow. I mean, just the high points of it is, signing off on some stuff at the group level for, how we're going to manage data in the hierarchy, owner type details versus type details, owner, that kind of thing. It's just for the grouping of stuff behind the scenes. This is kind of on the technical side somewhat, but the other pieces, what kind of tools we're going to need, Zoom to jurisdiction, Zoom to GSOC ticket request, bookmarking capabilities for, all of the above kind of thing. Report output for like the intersection, what do you give back as a intersection between a GSOC ticket extents and a owner operator extents. And then, what should it look like, that kind of stuff. We'll get into more detail as we move along, but I need to get kind of these basic pieces and desires kind of ironed out before we kind of move too much further in building things. And then, bounding polygons for, how are we going to do the GSOC stuff? Should it be dynamic and passed into the service, or is it some kind of database connection? And or we can go both ways. And then, the owner operator side of it, instead of trying to find a jurisdictional boundary, should we be doing something along the lines of buffering the features for each owner and coming up with some kind of a derived boundary, for lack of a better phrase? And where I'm going with that is I've already discovered that more than one entity has features that they're reporting that are outside their jurisdictional area. So the jurisdictional area is probably not necessarily something that we want to use for overlapping with the GSOC ticket. So,
Can you describe what you mean by the jurisdictional area? I think that's been confusing for, I know for me.
Well, I know that I'm using the wrong words from the GSOC side. I'm using them from the perspective of, like, typically the city of St. Paul will manage stuff within the boundaries of the city of St. Paul. That's their jurisdictional boundary. But the city of St. Paul also does work for Pine City, and they do work for Woodbury under contract, and they work on their their subsurface features. So it's like, I know the water department goes out past the boundaries of the city of St. Paul as well. So it's like, okay, I guess that's not really the path to follow. Anyway, we're going to discuss it more.
Okay, thanks.
And then past that, we actually got one of the or a couple of the electric layers in from the Glencoe area that are added into the interface already. And then the MnDOT stuff is still pending. We'll see where that goes. But I guess we're still kind of in that whole mode of, harvesting more data. So wherever we can get more data sources, the better.
Bob, is it
for
the
Glencoe or the state?
Bob, is it the Light and Power Commission in Glencoe that you got integrated into the system?
I can't remember what the name of the layer. It was the primary and secondary electric lines that are underground. That's
I'm pretty sure that's who it is, because I was going to comment that is the one that has signed off. We do officially have sign off from them to use that data that was provided to Barb, and I know Barb is working actively to obtain permissions from the other members in the Glencoe area so that we can get that as complete as possible. And we'll continue to provide that data as those agreements are put in place.
Yeah, I reached out to the city of Glencoe yesterday. I've reached back out to Lumen, and then MnDOT. The request is we just met with them the other day. So
yeah, so we got a bunch of stuff kind of up in the air and playing right now. So
yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Excellent.
Okay. Moving on to outreach. I'm actually gonna jump in here for a second. The folks over at Damage Prevention Professional sent over their publication schedule for the next year. And for anybody that is still on the outreach committee or small work group, the thing I would just try to point out, as you can tell, Barb and myself, Travis, others are doing outreach in the form of doing presentations and whatnot. And we kind of, as the leadership team, came to the conclusion that for right now, in terms of publishing an additional article, that we were going to take a break for the time being until we have something more substantial to report, like a functional first level viewer, that kind of a thing. So just if you will, if you're slotted on that outreach team, kind of jot down these dates and put them in the back of your head about where we would be up against the wall in terms of needing an article. And probably the first place it would make any real sense at the current time, short of the special locate issue, is probably sometime in that September 22nd there at the bottom for the winter issue, new technology. I think that probably would be an appropriate place because they focus these particular publications on a theme. And as you can see there, they are. So as we get further into the discussion here, as we jump over to talking about assignment with way forward, there will be things on that the outreach folks can be working on. And hopefully, eventually somebody will step forward and say, for the time being, I'm willing to chair the outreach team. So there you go. Barb, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I really would like, once we get Glencoe and we get those 4 things put together in a prototype, I'd like to put an article together. If we could publish that by, get it together by July 6th, that's great. If it slips to September, that is okay. But I'd like to shoot for that July 6th if possible.
Okay.
Because I think we're making, just listening to Bob last week and today, I think we're making some good progress, and it'd be nice to get that out there.
Okay. And with that, it takes us to Mr. Dean with regulations security. Dean?
So the regulations and security group has not met during the past month, but we have produced a revised set of outline contract terms for data sharing agreements based on the feedback that we got from group and Travis and Bob and other interested parties back in mid-December. We've scheduled another meeting, and anybody, by the way, anybody who's interested is welcome to attend. All you have to do is shoot me an email. I'll add you to the Zoom teleconference list. But we're having another meeting on February 10 to take further feedback on the refined contract outline. Hopefully we're within 1 or 2 drafts of the framework of being to a point where we can actually start to draft agreements for people to take a look at. So feeling pretty good about the progress that we're making there, although there's a lot additional to do. And once we get the outline complete, we're going to need to start to bring in some major facility operators. Unfortunately, we've got some built into the group. I see that Dana is on the call today along with David Phillips, and we'll be looking forward to your help on this. What else? I did take a look at your task list, Steve, which I thought was terrific. There may be other items to add, but I think this captures in large part the significant items that need to be addressed by our group. And I'm kind of mentally thinking about it as splitting it into phase 1 and phase 2. There's certain items such as determining what are going to be the limits of a bounding box and what kinds of limits on inquiries are going to make sense to help limit the potential for misuse of the system. And again, we'll need the input from our various stakeholders to come up with thoughts on that, and then we'll figure out a way to refine it. So that's probably more a spring and summer project, but the data sharing agreements are front and center right now.
Okay. Does anybody have anything for Dean?
Yeah, one of the thoughts we had was as we get the prototype put together, start talking with our top 20 facility operators at Gopher State One Call and do a meeting. So the data sharing agreements and that discussion is going to be a key part of those meetings.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that in order to trigger real interest in having somebody, plow through the mundane detail of these agreements, it's going to be very helpful to have a working prototype that people can take a look at and kind of get their arms around, and then they can think about, okay, what are the potential problems from my perspective, so that we can make sure we try to address those in the data sharing agreements.
Mhm.
If I could, Mike, I believe it's Mendiola, you're on?
Yep, I'm here.
Mike, is there data from DPS, obviously the PIMSA stuff, that kind of thing? Is there anything at this point that would be available as a database that we could begin looking at trying to bring into the system?
There may be. It'd be difficult to obtain it. If we're looking at various utilities, the PHMSA database mainly houses interstate pipelines.
Right.
That we would. I don't know what kind of XYZ information is entailed in those mappings. I'd have to take a look at that database specifically. I know some of that information does provide, like, who the operator is, which pipeline companies they are, possibly size, and maybe pressure. But other than that, it may not provide a whole lot of information that we may be able to extrapolate if we can. I'll see what we can extrapolate from those databases.
Excuse me, this is David Phillips. Can I interject right quick? Yeah, PHMSA has a public viewer and has a viewer for operators to have to use their operator ID to log into. And the public viewer, you don't really get to see very much. The scale is way out there. And as far as trying to get data, you probably won't be able to. So that's under lock and key big time.
Yeah, you'd be able to see the general locations of the pipelines. And that's about as best as you can.
The Homeland Security Information Program stuff that was rolled into the Freedom side, that stuff 10 years ago was horrifically bad, but it seems like I've heard reports that over the last decade they've cleaned it up and it's pretty good. Would that be an area which we might want to consider?
Definitely, we could definitely consider it. I'd have to see what exactly would be available to this group.
Yep. Could you kind of like poke around in that whole issue and be able to maybe come back to us and let us know what that issue looks like? Okay.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess we're still sans Mr. Eric in crew. Did you get any response, Barb?
Yes, I did. He said he had sent you a note. He has a family emergency and isn't able to attend today.
Okay. So we're running ahead by half an hour, and maybe we'll need it, maybe we won't. So let's see where we go with this. I've got 5 items for you on the way forward. There was a good suggestion put forward last time, which put me back at the PowerPoint to come up with Fusion View 3.1.1. Then I have something that I need to pick your brains on, because again, I'm trying to figure out writing structure and how to plug stuff together so that it makes sense for somebody to read it. Then we can kind of review the UUMPT group structure. We're going to take a look at this small group tasking spreadsheet that Dean mentioned, and then we'll leave the floor for open discussion. So I guess that in total amounts to we're getting ready to check the spaghetti by throwing it against the wall to see where we are with getting things moving along. So here we go. Last time I got the request that the graphic was still too complicated and we needed to take a look at trying to boil it down to cartoon style. And I could have had a V8 moment when that was mentioned to me, because I thought, exactly, we're talking about cartoons and that's what pilots like to look at for things being described. So here it is. I'll open the floor. comments, did we get to where we need to be from this overall general, kind of give people a sense, the elevator slide, so to speak? The silence is deafening.
So while I'll give others time to read this quickly and react, I had one question for you, Steve, and that is towards the bottom of the page where we're looking at end use 3, the planning system. We've got that arrow headed back to the left between end use 3 and then the engineering firm referencing as-built data coming from the GSOC planning system to the engineering firm. And I was wondering about what you were anticipating that was doing. At least I've been under the impression that maybe brand new as-built might be accurate, but very little of what the utilities have right now would be considered accurate as-built. So just curious about that.
Let me try to take that apart by arrows, I think. This would be the idea of the back and forth arrow between the end use 3 and the fusion view would be about the planner going up to fusion view to be able to pull in the data for their planning purposes. So that's the back and forth arrow there, making, if you will, a bounding box inquiry that we're going to be doing construction in area A, and we want to have the data pulled in. And so now they're down in the planning system with that data available to them. And then my thinking was that within their planning cycle, if you go look at what they did over in the state of Wyoming, and that was in the back set of slides on that whole package that I gave you, they were required to update their final plans, if you will, with what actually occurred. And that's where I'm saying out of the planning system, maybe it's better defined as the engineering firm sending, keeping their copy and then sending it over to the utility for the utility to be able to do with whatever they're going to do with bringing that in as a GIS improvement process. That's more or less how, in general terms, I saw that one. Did I miss your point, or am I?
Yeah, I don't think I articulated my question very well. Now that you've clarified my thinking, I guess and I'm asking if this blueprint reflects what I'm thinking. The engineering firm is the one that's responsible for preparing an as-built. As part of that as-built preparation process, they're going to be collecting their own information. Maybe they're out taking GPS shots of the infrastructure going in. Maybe they're doing other things. And one of the other things that they may do to supplement that work is to make a request through the GSOC planning system to make sure, for example, that they didn't just totally miss a line or something. And that is really what is anticipated by that arrow going to the left from end use 3 to the engineering firm. And then the engineering firm may be sending as-built drawings back to the individual utility company that it works for. But it's not necessarily getting as-built data from the GSOC planning system. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, so the answer should be maybe I need to move the as-built data wording over to below the other arrow. Would that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, okay. That's easy enough to do. Yep, I understand your point now. Yep.
Well, in my mind, and I don't know if this is going to complicate it more or not, but I always kind of considered the engineering firm basically as just another, I don't want to say it's a utility, but it's a utility-like organization that's going to operate very similar to everything that you got in the red box on the left. But it's not the utility. They're basically on the design side more of it. But each one of the utilities in their own right is probably going to have their own design aspects as well, which is why I say that it's basically the same thing as the services owners too. So I don't know if that convolutes it or not, but
I'd hate to throw my convolution in too, like, but when I'm looking at the flow here, I mean, really the tickets don't go directly to the locator. Those don't go over to other. I mean, what we're doing really is just it's just databases talking to each other. And so in essence, the Fusion View is the translator. And that's all. I mean, to even simplify it more, I mean, that's just, we're not working in circles. We're just translating in between databases.
Well, I think it might help if it says end use 1, after that should be facility operator. End use 2, should be excavator. End use 3, should be design engineer. To clarify who the users of the data is.
And those all point back and forth between a database.
Right.
And not really going anywhere but through Fusion View to translate it.
Right.
Barb, what was the last, end use 3, you want to call that engineering, did you say?
I said design engineers.
Design engineer, okay.
I didn't think designers was enough. I didn't think engineers was enough. So I guess I need 2 words.
They're cheap.
Yeah, no.
So, Travis, I want to follow up on I don't know if I completely followed your point. Is there some other adjustment you're thinking we need to make here?
No, just that arrow that's pointing left to the locator. It doesn't really work that way. If you just have it so it's a dual arrow going back and forth to Fusion View, because that's going, and communicating out to whatever databases it needs to get this information to. So in essence, like Barbara was saying, user group 1, 2, and 3 is all just basically going to Fusion View, and the Fusion View going to the different databases that this is all compiling together, whether it be an excavator, stakeholder, utility company.
So are you telling me this one right here should be a dual-headed arrow?
No, just get rid of it. You have the dual-headed arrow down below.
I think what Steve's trying to get at, Travis, is a locator's out, the facility operator's out in the field. They find that the gas line isn't where the map says it is. So they want to update the box on the left. How should those arrows go? I think that what Steve's trying to show.
They're getting their information directly from the ticket management or from the one call, that's coming through their database. They find something wrong, it goes back into their database, and that database is contacting, Fusion View and doing what it needs to do. That's the only way I see it. That's just seeing that arrow come straight from the ticket management. I mean, yeah, if you're a small municipality, but most people have their.
Okay, straighten me out here. I'm thinking that the objective here is for the locator to be able to see the line data, which would effectively come out of the call by the Gopher State 1 call system.
Which is communicating to Fusion View.
Well, right. It's going back and forth with Fusion View. It generates the ticket. It generates the line data. It sends that to the locator. So that's a one-way street as I see it. And then as the locator collects the data, they keep a copy of it and they send the data to the individual utility, that the individual utility is responsible for updating their data.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, in that case, if you're going in that way, it's the same thing for an excavator. Because the excavator is just as important to make sure that everything's been located and accounted for, and they're getting they're getting direct tickets as well. So I don't know how do you put that in this?
Okay.
It's a shared form of responsibility. That's why we're trying to create this whole thing, is that everybody's on the same page. And how do you make it so this represents that we're all on the same page working together for damage prevention? to make sure everything's accounted for, the puzzles are there, all the pieces to the puzzle are there. So
Okay.
I'm probably making a big, I'm just making it more convoluted. So
Well, I think what you're trying to get at is if I'm in user 1, 2, or 3, and I find a mismatch between
Yeah.
what I see in the field or the map, how do I get it back to the facility operator in that left red box?
yes.
I think that, and
Yeah,
I'm
so
making an
whether
assumption.
whether you're a locator, an excavator, or just an engineer or whatever, it's all doing the same thing. It's how do we get it back to the,
The idea is that there's the potential for a feedback loop to further improve the map.
Right,
So-
which is the box, the red box on the left.
So keeping everything dynamic so it's always up to date in real time too.
Steve, could you expand on end use 3, where the GSOC planning system, it appears it's sending as-built data to the engineering firm. Then there's a reference to the engineering firm keeping a copy of the as-built data sent to the client utility. I think I'm missing something in that step. What is happening there?
Yeah, that's what Dean and I just beat up. Basically, the idea that as-built data should get moved, the where it currently sits under that arrow there should be moved over to from here over to being with this arrow. And again, philosophically, in those breakout slides, and again, this is the discussion point we're going to have here, is the level of responsibility for databases. If we attempt to drive down into taking that responsibility at the Fusion view or at Gopher State One call, that is, in my opinion, and where I thought we were, was that is something we don't want to be involved in. What you want to be involved in is providing best practices, procedures for the utilities to work towards improving their data, keeping them responsible for their data, and that the Fusion View call basically pulls in whatever they've updated. So you end up with, on the top, the feedback loop goes back to the utility from what's been collected in the field. And again, maybe my understanding is limited, but in walking through the event down there in Florida, what I kept hearing was that any of the recorded GPS locate data is not, there's never been an effort to send it back to the utility. I heard something like maybe 10% of the utilities want to hear see their locate data be brought back to them. Same thing down here on this end. If you have an engineering firm that has come through and done the calls, and again, on the slides from last time we got together, I had the I might actually have them here in the stack, but Wyoming's approach or Montana's approach towards managing this initial planning cycle amounts to being at the engine, as Barb delineated, calling it the design engineering phase, that they're working to achieve the basic plan. And then from the basic plan, the engineering firm, somehow we have to better define or better show the idea of the data collected in the field that refines that initial planning. It's the old campus approach that Bentley is used to sending the GIS data back to the utility. And I don't know if I've answered your question, but let me see if I got us partway there.
I think so. The place where I'm focusing is the reference to the engineering firm keeping a copy of the as-built data. Is that as-built data that is stored in the system because it was created by the facility operator, or are you actually talking about as-built data generated by an engineering firm then being passed back into the system?
Correct on the second idea.
Got it. Then that addresses my concern. So I'm good.
Yeah.
I have another thought. I think the You have 3 double-headed arrows pointing to end use 1, 2, and 3. I think those should be single arrows just pointing to 1, 2, and 3. I don't think data is going to go back from 1, unless you mean by a double-headed that you just pull it and then it disappears. But
We can do,
yeah.
I can do that, but again, it says data, calls, and response. So for instance, you get your call into the GSOC ticketing system. It's going to have to go over to Fusion View to say, hey, I got a bounding box here that I need to look at the data for this area. And then,
got it.
Then Fusion View is going to have to send it back to the ticketing system and say, here's what's in that area.
Yep, I just assumed that the calls were already in, so I understand now.
Yeah, that there's been this little thing in the back of my brain too about how Fusion View relates to GSOC directly, and
Maybe what we could
maybe Barb could clear that up. Go ahead, Dean.
We lost Dean. He was going to say something. I think he unplugged himself.
I was going to say, I had an epiphany, and I think that if we use the term data inquiries and responses, that would help at least clarify it in Barb's and my mind as to what that means.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I always had kind of the thought that the Fusion View was basically going to augment the ticketing system, I guess. And I'm thinking that those top 3 icons should be flipped around. So you have the GSOC over on the left, then the GPS collect, and then the locator retains copy of the data, all that stuff on the right instead. Because where I was always thinking that this was going is the GSOC system just keeps working the way it always has. But as part of doing the ticketing process, a new augmented feature here is going to be able to go into the Fusion View and get the data that's collected for each of the features and all that kind of stuff. And then it augments the ticket, for lack of a better term, and makes it look more clarifies the request process even further.
That's kind of what I was I guess you're putting it more eloquently than I am, Bob, but the locator is helping augment it along with the database, that the facilities already have, and along with everything else. It's just the Fusion View is just allowing it all to talk. So you have the GSOC on one side, and on the other side, you have the excavators, the utility owners, the databases, the locators, and everything. And the Fusion View is just allowing it to speak.
Yeah, Fusion View is doing the aggregation of data.
Barb's earlier comment, I think, then would help clarify all that, where you change, or maybe that was yours, Travis, where you change those end use 1, end use 2, and end use 3 to the actual end users. And then I think that probably gets you to where you want to be, because then it's obvious that the role of GSOC is that Fusion View, and that's what augments the ticket.
Yeah. I mean, when somebody's looking from the outside, they're going, how's Fusion View going to help me? And they're going to be looking at it as an excavator or as a locator. And then right away, they're going to have to, and hopefully this will clear it up for them. That's all I'm trying to get. And right now, we're still working in a circle, or back and forth, or dual arrows and everything. And so it's just like Fusion View is just basically translating all the data from everybody's individual database. But the locators writing to their database. They're not writing to the GSOC system. They're not writing to the one call ticket. They are writing to their utility owned database. And then that database is speaking to Fusion View and superimposing it, augmenting it onto the one call ticket.
So are you suggesting that we call in the green box, it's GSOC Fusion View, and take the GSOC letters off of end use 1, 2, and 3?
No, I mean, I think what Bob was saying is like it starts with the one call ticket, put the GSOC stuff on the left side, goes through the Fusion View back and forth, and then all the end uses are on the right side. The people are going to utilize this.
I don't think you need to change anything in the green box. I mean, it already says that the software on the GSOC server transforms the information, and I think that you can remove those those other references to GSOC and replace them like was said with the true end users.
Yeah, I'm my brain is not following the vision of Travis and Bob. I can't. Well, no, I just can't visualize it because the data is, everything starts with the facility operator data.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I've run into that same situation many times.
No, I'm trying to visualize it. I'm just not, I need help. Yeah.
I wonder if it, Steve and I should probably try and lay something out, I think, together. Steve's got a really good grasp of all of the little pieces. I think I might be able to make it flow a little bit better because I'm looking at it from a form follows function perspective.
Bob's looking at it. Bob and Travis are looking at it as a linear progression, that a call comes into the ticketing system and what flows out of that call coming into the ticketing system.
So they want to flip the left with the far right.
They want to pull
Move it to the left. Yeah.
They want to pull in use one all the way over to the left as being the start of the process, and then moving across as to how that process works. We can fiddle around with it, but I'm not sure that within one slide you can do that. But anyway, we'll try it.
Yeah.
It's the spaghetti against the wall. We jumped to 4.0.
Yeah, and the end use one, let me just see if I can help real quick. End use one is 800,000 normal tickets a year, right? You get a ticket, you look at it. End use two is the excavator in the field. Now they're ready to dig. End use three are design tickets. Get maybe 20,000 of those a year, combining boundary surveys. So I'm just saying they're all ticket based. I don't know if that helps.
I think my only really suggestion there would be to just, instead of having end use one, call it start use one or begin use one.
Well,
I mean, that clarifies it for me.
Barb has asked us to, if you will, define those rather than GSOC ticketing system, to just boil it down to who's going to be using it.
Right. Facility operator, excavator, design engineer.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, it seems clear to me that that should be on the right, basically all the field or foreign customer users.
All right, as a way forward, let's do this if it's okay with everyone. I don't mean to cut off conversation, but how about if I tweak this to be as has been suggested for this form, and then Bob and I can meet offline and see if we can come up with the linear progression idea, if there's a way to do that, so that provides something that makes sense to Travis and to Bob, so we can have a comparative approach to it. Want to do that? Does that work?
Yeah, and then Terry has his hand raised.
Okay, sorry about that. Terry, please go ahead by all means.
Yeah, and just a question or comment. Data calls are actually ticket requests, aren't they? And I don't see on here where it's going from the data is going to the locate collector. Well, okay. You're saying he's the locator GPS collect, and at the end of the day, it's ticket fulfillment, or I don't know. The ticketing part of it, just like Barb was talking about, the 80,000 for this and the 20,000 for that. It seems like we need to make sure we don't lose track of that. We're trying to complete tickets timely and better and all that. Does that make any sense?
I'm not quite following you. Please say it again.
Well, so Okay, we don't show the ticket request coming in. And
Yeah, that's the same
That's
point
true.
that Travis
Yeah.
and
okay,
Travis and
okay.
Bob were making. Yep, understood.
And it makes it look like they're just going out there to locate the equipment to collect the data,
Got it.
but they're actually locating it for the field operator as well. We just also want him to be able to use it for, visualization and everything else they have, but there's a little bit more tying in there. And I understand you have one page, and I got my comment out there. It's not a major one.
No, I think it reinforces what both Travis and Bob were saying. So we can take a look at it. I can do some more work on it and see where we get.
Yeah, Terry, you helped me understand a little bit more what's missing. The initial ticket request. Yeah. That's I didn't understand that piece of it.
Okay. Are we good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So moving on, here's where I need some help. Open to the floor basically is, I've been
Hear me?
watching the various presentations.
Yes, reason I'm asking because I'm double booked. I got a Zoom meeting going on one screen with the volume coming through my computer, and I got the headset on for this meeting.
There we go. So here's what I've got up there for what I think the technologies are for locating. And I tried to put them in what I thought was the most appropriate listing for the worst case scenario to the best. And I'm also asking what's missing, or have I stated things wrong? I am literally throwing the spaghetti against the wall, and would be very appreciative of feedback. Is this the universe of locating technologies?
Are you trying to point out what the best locating equipment or what the best technologies are to the worst?
No,
Yes.
I don't think so, because it doesn't make any sense, does it, Justin? But
Because the number one locator is a John Deere and Vermeer.
yeah, that's the unintentional hit right up on number one.
Right.
Yeah. But no, I think Dean's, but you got them all listed there, Dean. I think it's all pretty good. I mean, sorry, but you got them mostly, for the most. I don't know what EMU tracing is, but you can probably fill me in on that.
Where is it? Oh,
7.
that's the presentations we received from Santosh, and we were going
Oh,
to
yeah.
that we were going to
Yeah.
receive another one today on this, if you will, it's inertial measurement unit is what IMU stands for, and putting it in the pipe and letting it go down and, cross 3,000, 5,000 feet. It's only got 1 inch of variance kind of thing. So, so the reasoning behind what I did here is that in some form or fashion, in our documentation here, we're going to have to explore the technologies that we reviewed and what our feedback would be about what those technologies, the pros and the cons of those technologies, where they, for instance, there may be circumstances where satellite remote sensing makes perfectly good sense for a rural community to use. If they know that it's a straight line run between point A and point B, and they can identify it by aerial imagery, and what's the specs on it. Whereas, pothole surveys, obviously, what's the negative on it? Well, we're going to have to get the equipment out there, poke holes in the ground. It's going to cost a lot of money, but boy, is it accurate. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of laying out, these are the locating technologies, and then thinking about for an improvement plan for utilities, how should they be thinking about these and how should they be planning to employ them? So that's kind of what my thinking.
Yeah, how are you gonna get it out to the excavator correctly? I mean, if they're potholing or have an unintentional hit, how do they report it? Is that what you're thinking? How they verify, you know, however that's officially verified that that line is in the ground for somebody that's not having, you know, they don't have a GPS unit in their hand. How do they report it? Is it through an app that the one call provides or something, you know, that, how do we get that mapped out?
Yeah, as usual, you're one step ahead of me. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was just simply trying to develop the starting point on defining the locating technologies and the pluses and minuses of those technologies. Just as a simple, think of it as just as a simple reference document.
Okay.
I wonder, is this something that may have already been done by the Sioux engineers? Does anyone know?
I have some information. Again, this is Santosh. There is a project that's been going on. It's called the California Energy Commission, where they are validating this all technologies and trying to rank them. And again, there is no silver bullet. Every technology has its pros and cons, but most of the contractors need to be educated what need to be used in this particular specific conditions. So that is what the project is about. Again, it just started. It's a year and a half project. There was a funding from California Energy Commission that's been working on. Again, the results are not there, but they are doing some back-to-back testing in the test tracks. And I think the phase 2 is to do the testing at the utility locations.
Oh, very insightful, Santosh. Can you send me a link to that?
Sure, I will.
Yeah, thank you very much. We
And-
got Bob and Terry both with their hands up. Terry, why don't you go first?
Well, I guess that's because I didn't take my hand down. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Come on, you can take the floor if you want. It's okay. Bob,
Well,
what?
instead of taking the floor, I'm typing a note in there to help my ignorance.
Bob, go ahead. What do you got?
I don't know where it would fit into the categories that you got there, the list that you got, but what about, I guess you, for lack of a better phrase or title, consumer grade LiDAR scanning. And where I'm going with that is your iPhone 13 now can do a nice little LiDAR scan of a hole that somebody dug and, you know, the pipe's bent. So if you've got a good reference point out in the field inside of that same scan, that becomes very accurate all of a sudden. Well, you probably need more than one reference point, but you get the idea.
Terry did have a note in here. And Bob, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to kind of clean this up and then let you continue on. He's asking for definition of some of the terms up here and probably should have done a better job of that. I apologize. GPR is ground penetrating radar. It has an ability to go down to certain depths, but it's impacted by soil and a bunch of other stuff. The next question, IMU is inertial measurement unit tracing. Effectively, it's a piece of equipment with accelerometers in it, and most people's iPhones or whatever have got the same technology in it. That's how it knows about movement. And effectively what it does is it knows by where it starts and the physical forces that are exerted on it as it moves. It knows where it's gone and it can give you a very accurate reading as to, Santosh could talk better about that, but the length of run and drop off and things of that nature. And then the last thing is AR is augmented reality. And that's ultimately the goal that we're trying to work towards, is getting ourselves to the point where in an excavation cab, I should say one of the goals ultimately that you have to have GIS refined to the point where even thinking about making any of those technologies work in the first place, that's where we need to be. And
So are you talking about GPS locating technologies, or is this underground locating technologies? I mean, what are we trying to refer to?
anything. That's
Because,
what
I mean, the magnetic field locating is not even on the list, other than you have electromagnetic line, but that's, you're referring to actually magnetic tape in that number 6. And so that should be number 1 first foremost. And I think that's what Justin was getting at. He didn't even see it, and neither did I. And so if we're talking about how do we get lines located under the ground, obviously right now today is by far the best choice is, electromagnetic fields. And we've been doing that forever. Now, but how do we improve on that? And that's GPS mapping is what we're getting into. And how do we do that? And that's a conglomerative effort through the, when there's potholes, and how does the hydrovac crew, put down they've visually verified. How does, if we get to the point where we're using LiDAR and stuff, if somebody's potholing too, you could do that. But we're just improving on locate technologies, right? So I guess that's what I'm trying to sense the reason for the list, or what you're trying to define for the list.
Okay, so I'm trying to erase elements of ignorance on my part. So
Yeah.
number 4, I was thinking would be, is that not?
Well, locating crew. Yeah, you could expand on that and throw that up to the top, whether it's a utility or an actual contract locator. They're still going to use the traditional paint and flags, and how do they throw those down, and they verify it with electromagnetic field. So until we get to the day and age where they can be confident enough to do it through a GPS unit.
Okay, let me circle back, and perhaps I wasn't clear when I did this. I would consider number 1 to be the worst case scenario.
Okay, yeah.
I would consider number 10 to be the best case scenario, and in between, sequentially better capability as you move down the list in terms of the accuracy of defining what's underground and where it is.
Okay. Well, I moved some of the list around then. So that's
Okay, I'm all ears.
I keep picking on you, Steve, and I don't want to, but it's like as-built records are never, there are a lot of times they're not correct. I mean, so that would be way up towards the top then. Potholes are obviously good. Verified GPS is good, but the electromagnetic fields are virtually the best. IMU tracing, I know Santosh is still on, but the further you go, the more inaccurate it gets. So it's not really there yet, but it is a helpful tool. GPR, it's good in certain areas, but when you look at the map, you're talking maybe going to be able to find 10-20% of the stuff in Minnesota using a GPR. So it's not very reliable, and that's coming from a guy that sells GPRs. So then locating crew with equipment, I mean, that we already talked about that can be moved down. Satellite remote sensing still a new thing, and that's only going to sense mainly water leaks and different temperatures in the ground right now. Actually sensing where the utilities are laid, especially in Minnesota where everything's deeper, I think it's not very reliable. I haven't seen it yet, but being reliable enough as a way to locate underground utilities. And line drawings, unverified GIS, and unintentional hits. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, could I ask you to do this? If I send you the slide, could you go through and reorder?
Redline it? Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I throw in one little suggestion here too? I wouldn't want to say that every one of these is used solely by itself.
Yeah.
Many things are actually working hand in hand because of the fact that I'm not putting paint on the ground, without having my accurate as-built records, right? Everything works hand in hand, and it's not just one is better than the other. It's all having the abilities to do the job conjunction with the other things that are on the list.
Good, very good point. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing. Where rather than this being a list of best to worst, maybe it's a progression of potentially where we start and the other options available for the data collection as the process evolves.
Yeah.
I think that's, it kind of echoes what both Travis and Justin are saying, that, nobody's going out to pothole unless the locate crew's already gone out and located it and gives them an area to start with that process. This could be a progression that we're listing from start to finish, including some of the most modern technologies that help finish out that process with greater accuracy.
I mean,
Correct.
this could be a group one thing if you want to give it to us, and Joe and I can get together on this and just redline it if you want.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
And then I heard a new term yesterday. Maybe you all know it. It's called it's related to this GIS. It's called GNSS. So it has something to do with it's totally satellite based. You probably know all about that, Steve. So it looks like that's another. It's probably ties in with number 10, but I hadn't heard those initials till yesterday.
Yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying GIS.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I should say GPS, excuse me.
Oh, GPS. Yeah, right.
Yep.
It's a very accurate version.
Okay.
This whole discussion has really been terrific, and it's caused me to take a step back. Can you repeat what the purpose is of creating this list? Sorry.
No, I'm not going to do that. Dean, what I'm trying to do is start developing elements for the right. And I wanted to pick the brains of the team that's here about helping make sure we have an understanding of the universe of locating technologies. Try in my very simple mind of thinking about this, trying to think of what would be the worst possible type of locating, which would be an unintentional hit, and what would be the best possible type to way of locating. And number 10 in my mind would have been that. And so Travis and his team are going to go through this and try to, if you will, more appropriately represent them in as Justin has mentioned, put them into context of, first of all, we've got the universe, and then second of all, what sort of approaches make sense for the various scenarios to locate. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. So, but when I'm used to seeing a list worst to best, I'm thinking those are strict categories, but that's really not what you're saying. Is that right? Because what I'm hearing from Travis is each of these or many of these technologies have their own advantages and disadvantages. So what you may want to use in a situation with clay soils where it's been raining like crazy may not be the same as, what you're using out in a rural area where it's been dry and it's sandy soils.
Correct. And all I'm going to try to do here is, if you will, work towards creating a part of our documentation of what these technologies are, what the pluses and minuses are, and then referenced against Travis and his team looking at this, trying to talk about for which circumstances do a mix of approaches work best. For instance, is potholing, marking and potholing best to use along, utility development alongside major highway, or whatever the case might be.
Okay, so and then that was back to my other point. Help us out, some of you subject matter experts on the phone here, because that's not Barb or Steve or my area. Isn't that the purview of the subsurface underground engineer, or am I not understanding what their role is? I mean, Justin, isn't that what you use those people for? Or?
I'm not sure where we're going with that.
What's a subsurface ground engineer? I'm sorry. I know I have a company called Subsurface Solutions and I should know this, but what are you referring
So
to?
they're talking about a company that actually builds profiles for subsurface.
Oh,
You go out,
okay.
you profile an area, and you build a profile and send it back to the engineering sends it back to
Yeah. All right.
X, Y, and Z.
UMS is one that's in Minnesota.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah, when I deal with those kind of companies, still a lot that they don't know. So I just, I think are you trying to, Steve, are you trying to build an attribute list that we would have to put into the GPS point location? So then we know for the future how this was confirmed?
Okay, thank you.
Again, now you're 2 steps ahead of me.
Okay, sorry. I'm just trying to find reason, I guess, too. Maybe that's what Dean was asking it for.
Hi, Steve. This is Santosh. Can I make a comment here?
Sure.
Again, I work with SUE organizations day in, day out. SUE is Subsurface Utility Engineering, and their primary responsibility is the utility investigation. So they work with the network owners, and they built a geofencing area to do the complete underground utility investigation. So SUE organizations are responsible to locate what has been existing in that specific geofencing area and submit the reports back to the network owners for their new construction bills. So ASCE 38 is a standard that was approved by the Department of Transportation. SUE is kind of a more like a mandatory requirement in some of the DOTs. So Colorado DOT, anything that is going underground, SUE investigation is a primary requirement to know what is there already in the ground before they put the new installations. So the primary purpose of SUE is to cut down the damage and incidents, trying to do a more thorough investigation of the underground and generate the results back to the owners.
And they can use a variety of technologies to do that.
That is correct. They have a toolkit, and all the lists that you already have on the screen is part of their toolkit.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dean wants to say something.
Well, and I guess, and further to that point, Santosh, if you were to find an expert in that field, they would be ones that would I think already have the kind of information that Steve is talking about putting together. I guess that's a question, not a comment. Wouldn't they already have that matrix?
Absolutely, Dean, that is correct. They utilize all these tools, and they have a pretty good idea which of these tools makes good sense for that particular underground condition. So they have a very good idea where to use the GPR and where to use the people to walk over above the surface. So they are pretty much knowledgeable in this. This is what they do day in, day out. So I think it will be a good opportunity to bring the SUE expert on the call and just walk us through the steps that they take and how do they do the tool selection to know what's been underground. So I think they have a pretty good idea. And I can send some, I can refer a few people, Steve, to have maybe an offline conversation. And if you think it may be worth to bring those experts to educate more on the SUE investigation, I think it will add a lot of value.
Well, thank you, Santosh. Barb, do you want to, what are your thoughts? Do you want me to just meet with them privately, or do you want to sit in on that also?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I have, I'm
Other
fine.
commitments. All right, fair enough. Okay, have we beat this up enough?
Yes.
We got the wheels turning a little bit. Okay. Okay, group structure is the next thing. And this relates basically to what we're about to look at with a spreadsheet. The terms on the left, leadership, facility, data, FU for Fusion View, outreach, and legal. None of that stuff should be a surprise, except for what we're actually going to try to do here with Bob's build team is to work towards Basically, it's an ad hoc group that's going to come together and live underneath the data team that Bob's responsible for. And we've got basically 4 programmers plus Bob that we're thinking should be hands involved in this. And you'll see them on the right side of that listing there. And then there's been a bunch of folks that have stuck up their hand and said they want to be involved in basically having an eyeball on what's going on and be able to contribute offline. So we're moving forward on the actual build. We've got programmers that are willing to chime in and do it. And we've got effectively a group of people that have raised their hands and said they're willing to have oversight on it. So Bob, I'm going to kick back to you for a second. Have I misstated anything here on the Fusion View thing?
No, I think you got it perfect. As a matter of fact, I could probably just step back and let you run the meeting tomorrow.
So I'm getting beat up on all sides. Travis, Bob, anybody else want to chime in?
I just figured you had some pretty good scabs going already. So.
All right. Okay. All right. Death by 1,000 cuts. So anyway, just kind of to reinforce, as Travis has already indicated, he's been, when Bob is putting together a group and they want to talk about where they are with the locate data flows management stuff, that Travis has been going over to help out on that. So Adam's already over there. So I think we've got the 3 key players in that data team with the addition of Travis, providing his expertise to make things roll along there. And then Bob's on the hook for the group below. Everything else is pretty much standard, which moves us into the 4th item, a small group tasking spreadsheet. You get to that by, as you see here at the bottom of the screen, if you should lose your way, you should always know that just simply by typing in MGAC EPC and adding the .net on the end of it gets you to the backside web page of where we're organizing stuff. And you get to the underground utilities section by clicking this thing right here that says underground utilities. There it is in the projects under data right now. And the working papers thing, if you click on that, the next thing you should see open up is a folder that says improvement plan. And when you click on the improvement plan folder, you'll be able to find this spreadsheet in there, and away it goes. So I'm going to jump over there and see if I can jump out of the PowerPoint, and I'll try to explain it better than I've been explaining things so far. Okay, so here we go. What we talked about again last time, and what the intent here now is to move forward. The group leaders have the ability to edit this spreadsheet. So if you're thinking that you've been assigned to do something and you don't really think that should be in your bailiwick, then there's ways to type in stuff here and say, hey, I don't agree with this. I think this should be done this way or whatever. So in your small group meetings, you have, again, the ability as you're meeting to come in here, edit this thing. But this is the idea is to have at least some guideposts on moving through our next phase, which is getting, if you will, an actual operating Fusion View thing up and working. And according to Bob's vision on this, he's looking at building it in 3 phases. Basically, you build it once, tear it down, build it twice, tear it down, build it the 3rd time. And by the time you get to the 3rd time, you got your thing that's a beta that can be floated out to the world. And what I did here with the spreadsheet, and to define the taskings going forward, I broke them out basically with the startup, and then the next set that's in blue would be the into phase 1. And the end of phase 1 would be a prototype able to display data sets from multiple utilities, not just one entity. And then phase 2 is a prototype able to handle numerous live data sets. And then last but not least, phase 3 is to build the beta. It doesn't mean that we have to do everything sequentially, and within your particular work group, for instance, if it is Travis's work group, which is called the facility group, he can be moving ahead and working on stuff that, you know, is actually up in phase 2, but because he's only been assigned 4 items directly, I think, to that work group, that at least you got a vision of what would be expected to try to support that. So that's the overall approach. And what my intent, I think, to do is to move through the first 2 sections here of where we are with the startup and where we want to be with by the end of phase 1. I sent you the link with the meeting announcement that allows anybody to come in here and look at this and think about that, what's here, and jot some notes down that you can carry in to your small group meeting so that your time's focused and you can effectively move through thinking about how you want to try to handle this stuff. And with that, I'll shut up for a minute. Is there anything I need to explain further about what this beast is and kind of what the vision is? Going once.
I think what Steve's trying to say, maybe you said it already, and I didn't hear it, is trying to break it down into tasks to accomplish, to keep things moving forward at a good pace. To put some meat on the bones, to say, okay, let's go get these 4 or 5 things done right now. Be aware of the next 4 or 5 that we have to do right after it or at the same time.
Thank you, Barb. Less words is better. All right, anybody else? Okay. So for instance, this first one up here is minimum requirements. Data prototype obtains several build area of interest static data for sets for developmental purposes and use a demonstrated ability to pull in diverse data sets during phase 1 prototype. Adam Franco has volunteered data. And who's this assigned to? It's assigned to the Fusion View team. So they know that they got to find data. And as we heard earlier from Bob, they're in the process of doing that. Then comes over to the leadership. We've heard Barb here, for instance, talk about determine the build area of interest. We've selected Glencoe, and the leadership is on the hook here to start providing, you know, the decision's been made. And I suppose maybe what we could do is start crossing this stuff off as it happens. Obtain some dynamic polygons for the build area of interest, and Barb's working on that. Obtain the boundaries from Gopher State 1 call for the build area of interest, and that's a leadership issue. And then Dean's already briefed us that he's gone through and created this first potential legal document for the sharing of data. So that gives you an idea, again, as Barb reinforced, with how to break things down into smaller tasks and stuff, for instance, it can be handed out or determined in your smaller group meetings. Are there any comments first before we move on to the phase 1? Is there any comments here about what we're doing on the startup? Is there anything we should be doing different? Something we missed? Hearing nothing, we'll move on. Okay. The goal at the end of phase 1 to get there, here's the items that I believe need to take place or put on the spreadsheet. Data in terms of attributes, determine a minimum locate collect schema, which will support data management in Fusion View. Data attributes, determine which attributes should be available for each GIS category. Categories of data, determine data categories for underground infrastructure. I'm just going to stop and say it isn't as if we have to figure all of this out. There are examples out there drifting around, and if we wish to adopt that model, that recommendation needs to come forward from, for instance, the data group. Categories, determine required above ground data categories that will be needed. Street lighting, for instance, is the example I put in here, may be impactful on where buried infrastructure is. Data, other data sets, determine which support data sets are needed for ticketing, critical information for non-utility specific resources or sources. Build, ensure the build can handle thousands of data pulls a day. Build, ensure use of open geospatial consortium data standards. Data, manage, determine what technically should trigger local storage of data. Build, set tentative end dates for remaining phases. Policy, determine design limits for bounding box. Locate, data collect, determine minimum standard for physical collective data. Locate, determine hierarchy for locating infrastructure and data points of contact. Obtain list of contact for state utilities to enable data survey. And then there's a note in here about ensuring that it doesn't appear as though we are walking over the top of OCC, because it's critical for, as Barb's going to move forward here with this effort, that it doesn't look like we're coming from two different sources. So that needs to be closely coordinated. And that's the essence of what, as you can see, for legal, they've got the bounding box determination. The leadership team's got to figure out what are the end dates for remaining phases. So Barb's already basically said, we're shooting to try to have this done by the end of April. And so it means basically we got to do some serious hauling on all of these issues, because they need to be brought out. And Bob's got his hands full, because he's got both the data element as the chair of that, and making sure that the Fusion View team builds through things in the way they need to be done. And with that, I'm going to open the floor and see what other thoughts are out there. Hearing none.
It looks good. You did a good job. Everything's organized.
If you get a brush off from Travis like that,
No.
you know you're in trouble. Okay. Anyway, we've heard the complaint in the past that teams didn't really have a sense of what they should be working on or where their points of focus should be. And as we've talked about, this is a way to try to break things down in tasks so people could see it that way. And you got your charter to move forward and to try to do this in your small groups. Any last thoughts, Barb? You want to chime in with anything?
No, I think this, it's really up to the leaders of those groups to get the groups together and really drive as best as possible to get these accomplished.
Okay.
We have a window. We all know we have a window of another 2 months before it gets real busy. And I know we're all busy already, but then it becomes unmanageably busy.
Steve, I got a question. When you were talking about data standards, did you consider PODs, the pipeline open data standards for petroleum pipelines? What all are you looking for or taking into consideration?
You guys are the experts. You're the ones that are supposed to bring forward, if you will, we should be doing this for this project. And
Okay.
so those are the kinds of discussions we're trying to stimulate here, because Barb, myself, and the rest of the team here, across the spectrum, we each have areas of strengths and awareness that the other parts of the team don't have. So we have to rely on, if you have those insights on pods, that we need to hear it. That's why we're here as a group. Same thing with the GIS piece. We're going to have to rely on the GIS experts to be able to tell us you ought to be doing it this way or whatever, or thinking about this set of standards or not. So that's the stuff we're going to have to package up in writing. And that's what I'm trying to start, effectively moving towards.
Yeah, standard is a big animal, so
No lie.
it's gonna
No
get
lie.
confusing.
No lie. Okay. Terry,
Oh, yeah, Terry's question on chat. I guess go ahead, Steve, if you want to address
so
that.
Terry has asked a question in chat that basically says, will the end result of this be finding a legislator to sponsor a bill that would mandate, and I will assume that'd be an implementation window. If this is the path and not only volunteer membership, at what point would we look for and recruit this person? Unaware of Terry, we're already have a number of openings on the legislative side. We've had an invite to the water legislative team that is an open-ended one. We've been working with Victoria Reinhardt and been able to move endorsements through the Clean Water Council. And there's, I think from last time we met, I believe it was David Phillips that updated on the issue that it also moved through the Association of Minnesota Counties Natural Resources Board, I think it is. So we're gradually trying to build towards that, and to the degree that we need it, that'll be an outcome of this process. Barb, do you want to contribute further on that or not?
Well, right now it's we're going along the volunteer path. Let's build it. Let's talk with the top 20 facility operators. Top 20 facility operators registered with GSOC do 80% of the tickets. And then if it does require a legislation, let that happen organically. We're not in the position or intention to say this must be mandated, because we're not ready to do that yet. And that's not the intention.
Okay, and that's why I was curious, because I just know sometimes if you involve them early, they get much more invested in what we're doing. If once they see the process, the involvement, the group contribution, and I just want to make sure we don't lose an opportunity if that was going to be the outcome.
Now we do have a couple lobbyists from, for example, the lobbyists with AGC, general contractors, who is now aware of this effort. So I think, more and more as this gets some legs, more people will become aware through either lobbyists or supporting legislative people.
Great.
I actually look at this, almost from the diametric opposite. I think that there's plenty of push for legislation. It will naturally occur. The real issue is, can we make this system simple enough, efficient enough, and inexpensive enough so that it can improve the quality of maps like we think, so that people will want to adopt it. That's where I think the real issue is.
I think that's well
Kudos,
said, Dean.
Very well stated.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of fabricating to do before we think about that.
Right, and that's why I'm just there's already been legislation proposed to make GPSing of all new infrastructure that goes underground in the state of Minnesota mandatory.
And Dean, I know
that happened 2 years ago. So I don't have any doubt that at the appropriate time there'll be legislation. And I understand, Terry, what you're saying, but I think there's going to be such a push that the real concern is that the legislation happens before the industry is ready to get there.
Yep, and and that's a perfect example, because if you look at that proposed legislation, it didn't even have an accuracy standard. It just said GPS, which could have been your iPhone and 30-foot accuracy. And that's why I want to make sure these efforts don't get watered down by somebody who hasn't been involved, or
Yeah.
Right. Understood.
I think a fair way to think about it is, for once in the world, we're trying to get ahead of the issue so that we can shape it for the benefit of the industry rather than the legislators telling us how it ought to be done. I think that would be the fair way to think about it.
Well
Amen.
said.
Okay, moving right along. Let me see if I can get back here. And next. So the floor is now open for open discussion. What have we missed? What should we be thinking about different?
Yeah, I just want to throw out one thing. I need for the presentation Travis and I are doing at the beginning of March. I need some slides on the prototype, really ASAP. So if anybody can help Bob get those done, get some more data, that'd be appreciated. I know I've asked Chris Fry at Lumen. So if Lumen can help get us some Glencoe data, the folks on the phone from Lumen, I'd appreciate that. MnDOT is working with us already. I need to show some slides that show the prototype is working. And I need to get the presentation done next week.
Okay, in general, that's just a general thing. Any data that's available, push it our way.
Well, yeah, you saw the slides we had before, Bob, right? That we kind of put together, that the line data showing up on the one call ticket.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
saw that.
Is that what you're looking at for, Barb? I mean,
Well,
something like that.
not necessarily. I mean, what we want to demonstrate with the prototype is that we're collecting all of this stuff from all over the place. I mean, that's kind of the focus, I think, that we're trying to demonstrate.
Yeah,
But
just a few more, and then the
result is what you're talking about.
Right. So it's similar, but I just would like to take it to the next step.
How many slides are you looking for from Bob?
I need like 2 or 3 with the prototype, a description of the prototype, which maybe we can use the Fusion View picture, and then a map, like a ticket with the various utilities shown on that pretty clearly. I think that would suffice. The Fusion View, a revised Fusion View or as is, I could even live with because we can explain it.
Actually, Barb, if you could send me a few old tickets, with the polygon, or have somebody send me something, that would probably go a long ways towards setting something up along those lines.
What data would you want from the ticket? What attributes are relevant?
Well, I don't need necessarily attributes, but I mean just an area, inside of Glencoe someplace would be good.
Okay, just like a handful of polygon.
Yep. Yeah, can you do that, Adam?
Absolutely.
You still have that one, Adam, don't you? That you did before.
Yes, yeah, we've got several samples, and we'll just grab a few different entities so that you can show like the circles, routes.
Yeah, that would be good for comparative, and binding things together.
Thank you.
And Barb, rather than generically next week, what day of next week?
Well, they want it all done by the 2nd. I'd like it by Thursday of next week.
The 2nd is Tuesday, isn't it?
I know, but I'm going to be late because then I have to send it to Creative, and then Creative has to create the presentation. So the organization wants the whole finished thing by February 2nd, and I'm not going to make that date. But if I get the data by the 3rd, I can get it into the presentation.
So you want the input no later than the 3rd, which would be Wednesday, if I'm
Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay. I've already sent the existing presentation with edits over to Creative, so they already have that.
Okay.
With a note saying I have to add 3 or 4 slides.
Okay, I can get the Fusion View corrected, as we talked about ASAP, and get that over to you. And then Bob, it just boils down to you doing an update view of Glencoe. Is that correct?
Yeah. And then once I get those, pre-existing tickets, I can work alongside of that with, processing kind of mechanism that the way that it's going to look.
Bob, what format do you want those in? You want those as shape
Whatever,
files?
whatever you've got them in, I can work off of a raster image, you know, screenshot, or, you know, if you got an HTML page, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just really for comparative purposes. What I'll probably end up doing is just drawing an ad hoc polygon line if I can see it on the map, you know, related to, you know, the dynamic map that we're using.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't,
That's
you don't
crazy.
need to go crazy.
I'll just get you a screen grab with several different entities overlaid on the map.
Yeah, as long as I can see the polygons on a map, that's what I'm shooting for. And then
Got
all of the other reporting information is good too, but really just the mapping side right now.
Okay, we'll throw the GPS in there too.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Anything else? Floor is open. Going
Steve,
once.
I'd like to echo what you said just a few minutes ago, that I really love the work this group is doing, and hopefully we can get ahead of efforts like what happened 2 years ago with that bill that was introduced to mandate GPSing of all newly installed underground utilities. When you get a effort like that put forth by a group that doesn't understand what they're trying to mandate, that creates very bad legislation. I've seen attempts to do that many times over the years. I've been on the 216D review committee for 19 years now, and I've seen that come up several times. I can't applaud this group's efforts enough. We're trying to set up and create the structure to help improve efforts in this area ahead of the legislation. So we really, as a group, I'm going to continue to try to promote and make aware of different areas, what this group is doing, who the group is, and why, until we can get a little further in our process, hopefully no legislation like that attempt 2 years ago can get traction in the legislature and move forward before understanding and structure is ready to deal with it. Does that make sense?
Well, thank you for that comment. I think we've already built a level of protection by the fact that the group exists and it's making progress. And I think any legislator that would attempt to get ahead of us coming back with determinations on thing would be on shaky ground, I believe. But you know, others may have opinion on that. That's different. But thank you for the comment. I appreciate that. Barb?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're gonna shut things down here and on a 1 potato, 2 potato, 3, if nobody else got anything else left.
I got one for Barb. Can you send me the background slide or whatever framework you're using for your base on your slides? Whatever your slide template is.
I don't really, you just send me it, just send me what you have. I have created managing all that background stuff because they're doing 2 versions for me. One with the background that the committee wants and one with the regular one, so we can show it at other places.
I was just interested in what the size was. Is it a 1080 by?
It's just a normal PowerPoint thing.
Okay. I'll go wide format then.
Okay.
Thanks to everyone for a great discussion today. And Steve, thanks for all the extra effort you're putting in on this.
Oh, wait till you get my bill, Dean. So don't make me just. Okay, here we go. Fearsome foursome. By next time we meet, hold a meeting of your active small group players, review the tasking spreadsheet and develop a plan to tackle your group items on the spreadsheet. Commence work on the assigned items and brief your progress at our next large group meeting. And let me jump back here for a second. Next meeting. Oh, did I spell February wrong? Oh my gosh. Anyway, next meeting, February 24th at 1 p.m. Scribble it on your calendar. you'll see the meeting announcement show up in your inbox. And last but not least, a diamond is a chunk of coal that made good under pressure. That's what we're trying to do here. Turn coal into a diamond. All right, everybody.
Good choice, Steve.
All right. Take care, folks.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.